Welcome to Classes of Mail. Before you listen, you should know that Alan Gigax is not in any sense an official spokesman for the post office, the NALC, or anybody else. His opinions are inherently his own and should probably be disregarded. Same for his guests. Any information you hear on this podcast could be wrong and should not be relied upon for any reason. Enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Classes of Mail. My name is Alan Gigax, and I have a special guest with me, C. Moline. Say hello.
Hi.
Yay! All right. I always love having C. Moline on the podcast. She brings great energy and great knowledge and fantastic union organizing, and that's what we're here to talk about, of course, is your role within Build a Fighting NALC. BFN is up to business. And so we want to talk about that. So I'll kind of let you take the lead here. Right off the bat, what is the BFN up to? Like, what brings you here?
Yeah, so we're revamped and we're going towards a lot of things right now. We got a bunch of resolutions that we're working towards for the National Convention later this year. You can find all of them on our website, fightingnalc.com. We have one about the right to strike, in support of not crossing the picket lines like the Teamsters have, live streaming the National Convention, which I'm sure many people who are on their routes really would like.
Absolutely.
Legislative resolutions in support of comprehensive housing reform. We're working currently on a rules change towards direct voting. Again,
Direct
we're
voting
submitting.
in what sense? Like, what do you mean?
I think this is specifically about this one. I think is still being developed by Michael Still, but I'm pretty sure it's about the convention stuff.
Okay. Like
We'll
a
see
way
how it
to
goes.
allow non-delegates to vote?
I think so. We'll see if that goes anywhere. It's still being developed by Michael Still, and he's putting it together, and hopefully we'll bring it to our next general members meeting.
Right on.
Which
the devil is
coming up.
always in the details.
Yeah,
And
don't we know it?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see the language on some of that stuff. I plan to have a series of Classes of Mail on the language of resolutions and really digging into the resolutions. What do we want to support? What do we want to fight?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I look forward to seeing that stuff. Do you know? So the only clearinghouse that I'm aware of for resolutions is Stephanie LaGreca, just a person in New Jersey who's keeping track of what resolutions have passed branches. Do you know if these are being sent off to her?
I don't know if these are being sent off to her, but we can definitely bring it up at our next general meeting.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
3 more, which is like locality pay.
Okay, of
It
course.
got passed by branch 34. We're still waiting for the full text. There's one supporting gender affirming care.
Okay.
And then there's one which is an amendment to Article 9 and 16, which gives authority for bargaining to both the president and the executive council.
It seems like there's going to be quite a few of those resolutions at the convention.
Yeah, that's a classic one. It came up last convention, but a lot of these are still, being worked on. We still have a little bit of time, although I wish, we were a little bit more on top of the ball. But if you have your own resolutions, you can bring it to the next general membership meeting, which is going to be the 26th of April at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can register on the website next week, or you can sign up for the email list.
Right on, right on. I think a key to getting these resolutions to the convention is having a friendly branch where they can get passed. And this is the problem that I have. I certainly have ideas, things that I'd like to get passed, but, well, you kind of know how the lay of the land in my branch, and so that makes it tough.
So for us in Seattle, we've passed the right to strike resolution. We passed live streaming the National Convention, and I know we passed the gender affirming care resolutions. Of course, the best way to do it is to pass it, send it to your state organization and get that there.
Right. It does seem
I'm
to carry a
hoping
little
that
more weight. Yep.
it carries a little bit more weight than just your branch. Hopefully, we'll see Washington's name over the
There you go.
convention book like last time. We're also supporting the May 23rd informational pickets alongside the next gen carriers,
Absolutely.
focusing on that 30 for 30 plan. That's $30, and also one manager or supervisor for every 30
Yeah.
employees. Which, ooh,
That would be
that
great.
was
See, I got to tell you, there is a supervisor at my station whose whole job is to issue discipline.
yeah.
In the morning, she tells people, get back to your case, no talking, get off the street or go to the street, load your truck. And then she'll do the discipline for attendance, discipline for essentially whatever she can. And what's crazy about it to me is she's not good at it.
No,
And,
they never are.
No, it really just seems like they picked a supervisor who they know won't tell them no. And so all of this discipline that she's issuing all gets overturned. And I talk to her and I say, doesn't that tell you something that everything is being overturned? And no, it sure doesn't.
As we know, like managers are, if we think it from a Taylorist viewpoint, managers are decided upon not because of their knowledge, but because of their like willingness to be part of this whole process.
Right.
That's why they're chosen.
Yeah.
If you look into it, it's really about the personality, somebody who's willing to take abuse and dish out abuse, not somebody who knows how the post office works, which is why they hire PTFs to be managers, which
Right.
always
Yeah,
drives me
that
crazy.
they do. Yeah. So let me
what-
ask you, this wasn't on the 10 sheet, but it's something that
Okay.
Karif brought up, and I'd like to get your opinion on it, which is lead carriers, where a carrier would help in the morning to like set up the board, set up what handoffs are going to be, things like that.
I've met many a lead carrier in my life, right?
Okay.
I've been the lead carrier before where you've got that supervisor who doesn't know how to do the board
Oh,
and
yeah.
you do the board for them. You're like,
Right. You're kind
if
of a
you
de
do
facto
this-
lead carrier. Yes.
Yeah, you have a de facto. So it would be fine with me. The only problem that I would see is if, for example, that it just, once we start blurring those lines between supervisor
Yeah.
and carrier, we start having a lot of problems. I mean, that's just my opinion. It can like disrupt the solidarity between us as carriers if you got a guy who every day is giving, a piece off. And remember, we can grieve management, but we can't really grieve.
Yeah, that is very
each
true.
other's
If you don't like what the
behaviors.
lead carrier is doing, like how do you do overtime inequitability when it's being distributed by another carrier?
Which, if there's one thing management should be doing,
Right.
it's assigning work.
Yeah.
It's not our fault that they assign the work incorrectly, but this is like one thing that is supposed to be their job.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, there would be, just like with these resolutions, there'd be a lot of details that need to be worked out. That is for sure.
I'd love to see the full resolution though before we, poo-poo it so hard. But yeah,
I would like
that's
to
my
see how.
opinion.
Apparently, it was piloted in some places, years ago, and it seemed to work out fairly well. I don't know the details. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get back to the topic at hand. You guys have in Build a Fighting NALC, you have a general membership meeting coming up. So go ahead and
Yes.
plug that.
Well, it's going to be April 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern or 10 p.m. Pacific Standard. You can register on the
10 a.m.
website.
Pacific.
Sorry, 10 a.m. 10 a.m.
Yeah.
Not 1 p.m. and 1 p.m.
Yeah.
1 p.m. and 10 a.m.
There you
And
go.
we're asking you to register on the website probably next week when we put it up on the homepage, or just sign up for the email list and you'll get it. That's where we're working on our resolutions, and we're putting together our next education series after we finish the one we're on, which we're going to
Yeah,
be
let's
working
plug
on.
that too.
Sorry, we're just plugging.
Yeah.
The Secrets of a Successful Organizer training this Sunday, April 12th at noon Pacific Standard or 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. I don't want to nitpick, but we're on daylight time, not standard time. I don't want to confuse people. That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
You know what? I am just a letter carrier. I hate to say
I
that.
hear you. Eastern
But if
time, Pacific time. Right. So that's at 3 Eastern, noon Pacific on April 12th.
Yes, and it's going to be you can sign up on again the homepage of the BFN website, which is fightingnalc.com, or you can sign up via the email list. If you're on the email list, you've already probably received an email about it.
Right.
Secrets is a
Yeah.
book
It's
that
a book you keep telling me that I need to read. So
it's
what's so
yeah.
important about it?
It's in my mind foundational to any organizing work that anybody is doing in a union. It's hard for me to understand how we move forward without first learning how to organize, right? And this is something our union is actually really bad about. We consider organizing just to be like whether or not people are members. But this is a really good book. It's put out by Labor Notes. And what we're going to be teaching is that first part. So it's separated into three parts. This first part is called beating apathy,
Okay.
right? The main thing that everyone says all the time when they're trying to get coworkers to do things is, well, nobody wants to do anything because they don't care, right?
True.
Nobody actually cares about what's going on. Well, that's just not true, right? We have to understand that carriers do care about their well-being because they exist in the workplace, right? They have a vested interest in how they are treated and how their pay is and what the working conditions are. But they believe that they cannot do anything. So it feels easier to pretend you're apathetic than to, you know, be in a situation where you're like, actually, I can't do anything. I care and I
Yeah.
can't do anything is a harder thing to swallow than I don't care, right?
It's
But
a
we
fair
need to
point.
show them that they care and they can do something about it, right? So this is going to be part of that process. Lesson one is called attitude adjustments, and then lesson two is about the one-on-one conversation,
Mm.
right? Last time we talked, I talked about the bullseye, right? That's going to be in here, but
Can
I
you
want
just
to talk
briefly
about
recap that? The
yes, the
bullseye? Yeah.
bullseye. Well, and we'll talk about it again on Sunday. The
There you go.
bullseye is this idea that all your carriers are somewhere based on their activation and their involvement in the union on this bullseye, right? In the center, you have your full-time like officers or your president, right? And
Hmm.
then your stewards, and then maybe the people who attend all the branch meetings, and
Right.
then the next ring out you've got maybe your alternate stewards or people who are really active in the union or come to the picnic, and then after that it's just people who read your newsletter, and then one level out is people who don't interact with you at all.
Right.
The goal is not to get everyone to be the president of the union. The goal is just to get more people towards the center. The reason it's a bullseye and not a spectrum or a 1 to 5 is because you're really trying to acknowledge the different ways people can be involved,
Yeah, I think
right?
it's mathematically more accurate as well because there's a very small number of people at the core, and the most people on that outside ring are just kind of going along to get along.
Yeah, but we want to pull them in.
Right.
I'm going to give you one more
Please.
little teaser lesson
That's why you're
before
here.
you come onto the training, right? But there's something called inoculation. You ever heard of inoculation?
I mean, in terms of medicine, yes.
Right.
Where
So
you
what
get a
does
little dose
inoculation
of
do?
something to prepare you for encountering it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in organizing, we want to inoculate our carriers before we do an action.
Okay.
For example, if you're going to do a march on the bus, you want to discuss with your carriers what do you think management might do? What do you think their reaction will be when we
Hopefully
do what we're
cry.
planning on doing, right?
Yeah.
But they might react poorly. Manager might yell at us. They might try to discipline us, right? You explain what is actually on the table so that carriers one understand the risks they're taking,
Right.
but two are more ready to receive the backlash that they are getting ready for, right? So if you have a carrier that you tell them, hey, we're going to do this action, it's going to be really big, it's going to be really flashy, we're going to get
Mm.
everything we want, and then they, get discipline in response,
Right.
and your carrier was not ready to receive discipline, your carrier may respond by being like, I don't trust you. The union doesn't care about my job. I have a family. I'm not going to stay involved.
It's reminiscent of when President Renfro kept telling us, oh, 2 more weeks, soon, and people believe him, and then it doesn't happen. And when he told us that, oh, we're not going to have CCAs anymore, and the pays are going to go up, and then none of those things happen, everybody gets burned on that message and that messenger. Let me digress for just a sec, because there's something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
We talked about this off the air, but I want to get it on the air. We have ostensibly right now a 3-way race for national president. And it's fine. I'm not going to ask you who you're supporting. It doesn't matter. At the moment, it doesn't matter. But you have access to different people from who I have access to. And in my experience, there's a pretty good split of people who are supporting Henry and people who are supporting Cariff. But I don't hear from anybody who's supporting Renfro. And I wonder, what's your experience in Seattle? How is that split?
It's my experience that the people who support Renfro are the people who are part of the same patronage network
Oh, sure.
as Renfro.
What is Vafiatas your business agent?
Lafayette is my business
Yeah,
agent.
he probably supports Renfro.
I'm not going to place anything on him
Yeah, that's
currently.
fine. That's
He
fine.
has in the past supported Renfro, but rumors are rumors are rumors. What do I know what he does?
I've heard some of those rumors too. Yeah.
But what I will say is, it the reason you are currently supporting Renfro is either A, because you believe he handled the political situations of the past 3 years correctly, even if he failed the contract
Right. Yeah, like we
campaign.
haven't been privatized.
We haven't been privatized, and you give him all the credit for that. That's your opinion. Or B, you are part of a patronage network, in my
Right.
experience, that benefits from one guy staying part of it.
Yeah.
And the reality is, both Henry and Cariff are both fairly qualified to do the work and the job. You might not like the flavor that they have and that they're bringing, but they're both certainly qualified.
I would agree
The
with that.
question then becomes like, well, which patronage network am I a part of? And I would argue, sadly, Cariff is without a patronage network. That's all I'll say about that. That he is without one,
Yeah.
and that's why I've seen what I'm seeing. Where I'm like,
Understandable.
there's an establishment who is both for Renfro and an establishment for Henry, and that's
Right.
hard for me to not acknowledge that Henry is also built from the machine in the same way that Leadership Academy builds a patronage network towards Renfro and
It's fair.
National, this like hope of one day being a staffer. I mean, in reality, hate to say it, everybody, but Formal A and Beyond, or whatever that class is that James Henry was teaching, creates the same patronage network.
Sure.
He's your mentor. He taught you all these things. That's why I trust him. It's hard for me to not be like, but what policies are we talking about? What are the actual positions? And in the
Yeah.
end, there is no real shift between these two men. And if we continue, I'm going to say it one more time.
No?
We cannot continue with great man unionism.
Yes.
We must break away from this idea that one man's going to change anything, one man's going to save us from the mess we're in. We're in a mess because we failed to learn the lessons we should have learned from the 1970s when we were actually successful. We let bureaucracy and service unionism like basically degrade our, working class activism. We got to refocus towards that if we want to get what we actually are trying to achieve.
Right. So this
That's-
big man theory that has gotten us into this trouble, this is why, like in my Real Talk about the CLC episode, I started talking about resolutions, Because even if Henry or Cariff get in and do everything they say they're going to do, and they really do like right the ship, you still have to worry about who's going to come after them. And we clearly have systemic problems because that system got us into this situation. And so, we need those checks, which is why resolutions like the one you talked about earlier that seat the bargaining power in the executive committee and not just in the president, that's why those things are so important.
Yeah, I mean, it is hard for me to describe a union as democratic when we can all vote against a contract and still have it forced upon us.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of action that basically degraded the entire, activism base of this union.
Right.
In my opinion, that kind of like, we don't care about you and we are going to fight against you from national, it really disenfranchised the carriers that I was really trying to build up during this process. We need to build up not just to fight each other, right? And defeat the contradictions here, but the real contradiction is between, me, Henry, Renfro, and management, right? It's us, the union, against management. Sadly, that's the actual contradiction that we have been failing to fight while we've been
the actual conflict. You mean that we?
Yeah, the actual conflict.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Right. We're obviously caught up in fighting among ourselves, and there's dysfunction within our union, and we've got three people fighting to be the next big man in the big man theory of history, and it's concerning. So, but to your point of like with the last contract, I think that's why you see so many people that believe I'll take anybody but Renfro. It would not shock me if it stays a three-way race for him to come in third. But you never know what the retirees are going to do because they're not hearing all the frustration on the workroom floor.
I feel that the retirees are probably going to stay with Renfro. Renfro, it was designated the person by Rolanda. Right? So,
and the retirees like him. Yeah.
And that's who they trust. They trust him. They don't trust me, the guy, the person who's just, I just deliver the mail. I don't know what my voice means.
Well, so let's get down to where your voice does matter because all politics are local. What's going on in Seattle?
So we are doing a bunch of things right now. Refocusing on the local is always a good idea. First, we're trying to develop. So we're in this situation where the postmaster of the national keeps saying, Steiner. He keeps saying that we're out of fucking money. That we're broke. We need money, and we agree that like one of the major problems is this one manager for every 6 craft employees, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think our elected officials know this, right? We're going to start a write-in campaign to our elected officials, doing some direct lobbying. We're going to be trying to use our paper newsletter that we send out, make postcards in the newsletter for carriers to cut out, tape up, and then send out to our elected officials.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so that's one of the things we're going to be trying to work on.
Is the newsletter, would like that edition be made of a hardier like cardstock, or how would you work that?
Our stuff is usually cardstock.
Okay.
It's if you have jury notices, like the small jury notices.
I know them, yes.
Yeah, it wouldn't be quite as thin, but it would be the folded up sheets with the tape on the top, right?
Right.
That's kind of the plan. We'll be working on them to kind of try to send our messages directly to our elected representatives, just because in the end, that money question is going to come up to them, sadly,
of course.
Right? It's not going to be something we're going to be bargaining over. So we want to just make sure that our thoughts come up,
I really like that idea because it eliminates a barrier to activism. And anything that can make it easier for people to do what you want them to do, it's it's a sharp idea. And I
Yeah.
would think the cost to the branch is fairly minimal.
Well, we already budgeted for the newsletter. Why
Right.
not have one page,
Yeah,
dedicated to
exactly.
this? It's pretty straightforward. The other thing we're doing, well, one of the other things we did is that this past week I had an event, you know, in preparation for my new manager. I'm having a new manager come to my station, um, who has a history, we'll say. We
Right.
were talking about him. He said about a carrier with congestive heart failure who was unable to come to work. We asked him how, how are they going to get their, absences excused? And he said the only way they would be excused from coming to work is if they retired, were fired, or died.
That's so
He
crazy.
broke the NLRA by spying on a concerted union activities. He doesn't care about us as carriers. He's made fun of disabled carriers before.
Wow.
He's a real swell guy, we'll say. But part of this process of having a new manager come in, right, is that most carriers don't know these things, right?
Yeah,
The
that's true.
steward may know it, but
Right. But it's just a
you
new
know,
face to most carriers.
yeah. And so we had a bar night where I had developed a file. We had a bar night and we invited everybody to come out to the bar after work and we went over the files together. And I went through all the grievances on dignity and respect that this one manager had had so that when he comes to the office next week, we
Right.
will already have set up the situation. This man has falsified statements against carriers from customers.
Oh my
Like,
God.
he's done so many things that are really messed up, right? But how do I prepare my carriers? Well, I can't just like do the rumor mill, which is the normal thing. Did you hear the new manager is, blah 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 or this and that?
Right.
We have to start doing this a little bit more dignified and a little bit more strategic. So we did actually have that. We had 14 people show up to our event. And we had a couple more people ask us for updates because they were unable to attend due to overtime. So we had a good turnout. We were actually really proud of that turnout. And we'll see, hopefully, as we go through that. The other aspect of this is how do we build these files for the rest of the management team, right?
Yeah.
These managers are always moving around. And how do we map the management team?
Okay. What do you
Also,
mean
is
by
that aspect.
mapping? Because I know that's like a union term, it's a term of art. So
Yeah.
for the listener, what does that mean?
When we say so, here is usually we would map our stations, map our branch, right? But when we turn to mapping management, I'm still developing this system. But do we know the EAS uh, pay scale based on office sizes, right? This is a level 16 office. This is a level, you know, 19, 20, 24 office, right? Those levels of offices, right? If we understand that managers get paid more based on the size of the office and that level, right? We can build
Right.
like a pyramid of managers and move them up the pyramid as they get the bigger and bigger offices or down the pyramid. When we understand that managers are moving into a higher pay grade by getting this new office, we understand that they are also going to.
I got to stop you there because I have it on good authority that, quote, those who do not treat others with dignity and respect will not be rewarded or promoted, end quote.
Well, that's not our experience, right?
No,
So
it is
we
sure not.
understand we understand that when managers are put in that position where they're able to get more money,
Right.
they're more willing to treat us poorly and able to maintain that new lifestyle, that new
Right.
pay grade, right? So if we don't understand how their transition to a new office is actually financially affecting them, maybe even where is that physically, right? Is it closer to their house? I mean, Seattle is a cutthroat installation. I've seen managers be transferred to the opposite side of town than they live as punishment from the postmaster.
I don't doubt that for a second. Yeah.
So if we understand that that's why they're getting moved, they're getting degraded because, I mean, I had a manager this past month who got moved from a manager to a supervisor,
Right.
right? And she's now getting moved to another station,
Oh boy.
right? And we understand that she will be coming into that next station with that anger and intensity, and this thirst to like get back up or not, right? And you have to like psychologically start understanding how these managers work. Part of this new manager coming in is an understanding that he is a smiley, fist bumping, handshaking kind of guy.
Oh boy.
Even though he's this man who is very cruel to carriers.
Right.
Right? He does that behind closed doors and directed at specific carriers. That's why we had this program to help them understand, even if he's nice to your face, this man is against your interests.
Yeah, so listeners, I want you to really think about what C. Moline is doing here and how you can do stuff like this in your own branch. You know, you'll see these posts on Facebook groups and they'll say, hey, I got this new manager coming to my station, and does anybody know what he's like? He just came out of St. Paul, Minnesota, or something like that. Well, if you know, because most of the time, like you're talking about, these managers are moved around within the same installation. They don't generally move like across the country. And so to get people together and to give them a heads up and to, in a way, inoculate them for what's coming and like, okay, this is what our game plan is going to be. This is such a tool of empowerment. And see, that's always the consistent message that I get from you. And that's why I love having you on Classes of Mail, because unionism is all about empowerment of carriers. And so credit to you, congratulations to you for putting something like this together. And B, God, let this be an example for union activists around the country.
Well, I think the most important thing about this power dynamic is the reality is we hold the power in this situation. We deliver the mail. The mail doesn't move without us. They get paid based on our performance. Their bonuses are based on our performance. We know that if we were to work to rule, it would be a sacrifice to us to, have to do all this bullshit. But also at the same time, we know that would degrade their quality of life as well, because it takes money out of their pocket and puts it back in ours, honestly, with the overtime.
Yeah.
So when we understand the actual dynamics in the office, that just because he yells at you, just because they issue all this discipline, if it can't stick, if they can't actually get you to change, what are they? They're a paper tiger.
That's it.
Right? We need to understand that. We need to set ourselves up for success. So part of that is understanding their psychology, understanding their wants, their needs, and understanding the incentives that have brought them to this position.
All right.
That's it. Sorry.
No, let me run something by you. You can tell me if I'm crazy for thinking this. I want to get a supervisor on Classes of Mail, somebody who will speak candidly. I have like a voice changer to protect their identity because no supervisor would be willing to do it. But I want carriers to hear like what pressure supervisors are under and where this stuff comes from and like what their bosses tell them. And, to kind of understand, to know our enemy, so to speak.
I guess I'm like, there are carriers who were supervisors.
Yeah.
And I would engage with the carriers who were supervisors because they know what is on that other side and have
come
decided
back from it.
Not to do it. Right. So I had a steward actually in an old office of mine who went 204B, and he was like, oh, these people, I have no ability to change anything. Right.
Yeah.
I can only put pressure on people.
Right.
And I'm like being yelled at all day, and he decided to leave. Right. We have something in Seattle. I don't know if you have these, what we call them yellocoms. They're the telecoms where they get yelled at.
There's obviously telecoms, but I love that name for them.
And managers are constantly complaining to us. They're complaining about the discipline that they're getting actually stuck with.
Right.
And they're telling me all these things. However, I will say that solidarity is not there, right? Just because they are getting the shit on them,
Right.
their mental process goes, "Oh, I'm getting shit on. I shit on the people under me."
Right.
And that's when they get rewarded, right? Their reward is when they take that and deliver it to us.
Right.
A good supervisor, a good manager is the manager who avoids letting the MCSO, the postmaster, uh, you know,
Mhm.
the the person above your postmaster like come in and fuck with your shit for no good reason.
Right.
When your good supervisors know that if they just don't do anything, I just deliver the mail. That's what I do. I
Right.
come to work, I deliver the mail, I go home. If you didn't talk to me every day, I would just do it the same.
It's true.
Like, but they don't want that, right? The goals are to cut routes, the goals are to speed you up. The goal is to wring out as much work and value from you as possible while stealing from you every minute. Because again, when we talk about that pyramid, right? That postmaster gets more money the more people are under him, right?
Sure.
It improves his importance, right? In Seattle, we have a guy between the managers and the postmaster. There's two of them. What
Yeah.
they do every day, I don't know.
So we have that here. I think it's called an MPOO, MPOO.
We have the MCSO. Yeah.
Okay, I think we might have both. I don't know one from another. But yeah, they're like this middle person between our station manager and the postmaster for the installation. And what a phenomenal waste of a position. And they come into the station and just like stand there and look stern. I don't know what they're accomplishing, but they get paid nicely.
They get paid very nicely. Well, they are often the ones who come up with these dumb ideas like, oh, there's been a lot of break-ins, so we need you to work out of the back of the truck. Oh, these ideas where it's just like, that's against the contract, that's not safe.
Right.
This is, whatever. All these things usually come out of these middle managers who need to
Right.
justify their position. But that's why they keep hiring more people because they can continue to justify their reality by having more and more people under them.
Right. And the people who get to decide how much management we have is management.
Management.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah. I mean, if you're a manager, do you want to be the manager who manages an installation of, 40 managers, right? Yeah, of course you want to be that person. You want to be the one who manages an installation of 100, 200,
Sure.
even if you never fucking see them. Because what you're getting at is this ability to just, get that next position up. The postmasters move around a lot more than the supervisors do.
Yeah.
They're the ones who do those national moves a lot more. They'll move to Tacoma or from Tacoma to San Antonio to New York City. They all want that more money. They all
Right.
want
They're
to make,
chasing that next level. I want
Yeah.
a level 22 office, or I don't know what the numbers actually mean, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's what they're doing.
Part of this, we have to start developing this understanding of their incentives and specifically their pay incentives. How long do they need to stay at each level to maintain the pay? How much do they lose when they step down?
And this is part of that mapping that you were talking about.
This is part of the mapping. This is part of the understanding.
Right.
It's so we're working on it in Seattle this upcoming week, and hopefully developing files for all the biggest, dumbest managers in Seattle. Kind of like a good primer that you can just bring from station to station as they, continue to mismanage. We were talking recently about a manager who was mentioned on
Yes, I was about to do a plug for the exact same thing. Go ahead, C.
from Dignity and Respect Today,
Right.
or DART, which was the old podcast by my friend and yours, Ralph Coolman,
Yes.
who was at the station right next to my station, Wallingford Station. And so when that manager is now moving, he moved up to the biggest station in the region, which is I think a 5-zip.
But see, I just read that the abusive people won't be promoted.
Well, as long as you can never whatever,
Right.
what
I
it
know.
is. But how do we make sure that, and obviously we were able to give that information over to that steward,
Right,
right?
right.
But we want that for all the stewards to receive.
Yeah,
We
it's
want to
something that
know
NALC
who
should
these
be
people are.
doing like en masse.
It's just so much work. I'm gonna just give them an out for once. For once, I'll give National an out, which is managing the flow of these people is actually really a lot of work because it's there's so many of
Yeah, I'm
them.
going to take your out away because we have enough money that we could pay like Amazon Web Services and just have robot slaves track them for us.
Well, what I will say is what you're actually trying to track is you're putting together these files of grievances,
Right.
right? Your branch is probably not using FileMaker like we're using FileMaker.
I
Where you
Yeah, it seems unlikely. Yeah.
like we're using FileMaker still. Some people are using RCS. Other people just write theirs down in Word, right?
Some people
So
still write them on paper.
and some people still write them on paper.
Yeah.
God bless them. So if you're in these different situations, like trying to centralize that, we would need to start actually working towards a centralized grievances processing, which I heard is maybe coming. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, we
Right.
know. You know.
I hear you. All right. Enough all of our nonsense. Let's
Sorry. Yeah.
let's work our way out of here by once again plugging what you have coming up. You have two events coming up, the meeting
Yes.
and the education.
General membership meeting, April 26th, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then again, the secrets of a successful organizer, part one.
Right on.
Part one, it's going to be a 3-part series, is this Sunday, April 12th at noon Eastern. Noon Pacific, 3 p.m.
There you go.
Eastern.
There you go.
Sorry about
Right
that.
on.
But
And you sign
please
up for that-
register
Go ahead.
on the website for Build a Fighting NALC, which is
FightingNALC.com.
fightingnalc.com.
There you go.
So,
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
You bet. And now, I mean, you've inspired a plug of my own, which is, guys, if you have not listened to the Dignity and Respect Today podcast, I just checked earlier today. It is still on Spotify. You have to listen. It is a hell of a ride.
Well, if we're going to talk, we'll say one more thing.
Okay, go for it.
The reality is that in the end, we kind of failed Ralph.
Oh,
In
dude,
the end,
I agree.
he ended up having to retire, basically. And he spent the majority of the last 2 years of his career
Yeah, on suspension.
on suspension.
Yeah.
Right? He was able to retire due to, his wife makes a little bit more money than him.
Okay.
But the reality is we failed. How do we stop ourselves from doing that again? I think is really the next step. That manager, I know him quite well, is a psychopath. He's a monster, right? And that's how. But how do we actually get these guys done? I have my own opinions. It's a continuing work and a continuing process. I don't know. I've gotten a bunch of managers. Of the managers I've had, 3 have been demoted to supervisors.
Ah, there you go.
So, but they're still around.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
still around. And I don't know how to get them from demotion to
can no
fire.
longer supervise carriers anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's really difficult.
Well,
anyways, that's enough.
It's a good
Sorry.
reason to have you on a future episode. You're always a fantastic guest. So, C. Moline, thank you so much for coming on. And guys, go check out Build a Fighting NALC. Join the organization. They are doing good work, doing important work. And that's all we have for today. So on behalf of C. Moline, I'm Alan Gigax. Thank you guys very much for listening, and I will catch you all next time.